Given the amount of time I've spent analyzing the role of religion in Final Fantasy XV, there may be no more perfect opportunity to expand the scope of this channel than to take a look at Final Fantasy X's extended critique of religion. In stark contrast to FF15's obscure Christian undertones, FF10's rejection of its world's religious traditions is by no means subtle. Its heroes find themselves at odds with the leaders of Yevon, reject its teachings, and eventually shake its very foundations through a mortal blow to its founders. While such an attitude is bound to evoke a strong reaction in anyone with strong feelings about religion, however, FF10's surface-level antagonism masks a deeper and far more interesting critique. If taken as criticism of religion per se, the game's portrayal of Yevon as founded in lies and perpetuated through the violent suppression of dissent effectively amounts to a shameless strawman. These same traits, however, allow the game to shed light on the violent sacred found in ancient religion. No one explains the violence at the heart of ancient religion quite as effectively as Rene Girard. Girard is a difficult figure to pin down. He was an academic of the highest order who taught French literature at Stanford University, but his ultimate claim to fame is the grand theory of human nature he developed via a synthesis of insights from literature, religion and theology, evolutionary anthropology, history, and psychology. No summary can truly do Girard's theory justice, but one of his more succinct descriptions may serve as a reasonable overview. Because humans imitate one another more than animals, they have had to find a means of dealing with contagious similarity, which could lead to the pure and simple disappearance of their society. The mechanism that reintroduces difference into a situation in which everyone has come to resemble everyone else is sacrifice. Humanity results from sacrifice. We are thus the children of religion. What I call after Freud the founding murder, in other words, the immolation of a sacrificial victim that is both guilty of disorder and able to restore order, is constantly reenacted in the rituals at the origin of our institutions. Since the dawn of humanity, millions of innocent victims have been killed in this way in order to enable their fellow humans to live together, or at least not to destroy one another. This is the implacable logic of the sacred, which myths dissimulate less and less as humans become increasingly self-aware. While Girard understood the sacred to refer to the sacrifice of arbitrary victims to restore order, he did not see all religions as equal. Rather, he believed that Christianity's relationship to the sacred was unique. That, in fact, the Passion of Christ unveiled the sacrificial origin of humanity once and for all. It dismantled the sacred and revealed its violence. What he discovered then is not an attack on contemporary religion. In fact, he provides an effective anthropological interpretation of original sin, and one that Final Fantasy X is happy to imitate. Sin, effectively, is the nucleus around which Spira orbits, the ever-present specter of annihilation that serves as the basis of Spira's core institutions. Girard posits two principal imperatives, prohibition and ritual, whose value in averting societal collapse leads them to serve as the foundation of human institutions. In that light, it is only natural that Spira's institutions, the prohibitions and rituals of Yevon, explicitly exist to ward off sin. Prohibition, as explained by Girard, entails the imperative not to repeat any action associated with the crisis, to abstain from all mimicry, from all contact with the former antagonists, from any acquisitive gesture towards objects that have stood as causes or pretexts for rivalry. Yevon's rejection of Machina serves exactly this purpose. The connection is quite explicit. Machina weapons are forbidden due to their role in an apocalyptic catastrophe, but the Machina used to play blitzball remain acceptable. Furthermore, Yevon's claim that sin's ultimate departure is contingent on atonement for personal sins closely links the end of the sin crisis with the cessation of crises caused by human conflict. While it is true that Yevon's leaders developed and propagated these prohibitions under false pretenses, it is also true that they believe such prohibitions to be necessary in order to maintain order in Spira. If anything, the truth that Yevon's teachings exist not to banish sin permanently, but rather to allow the people of Spira to survive despite its eternal recurrence, reveals a greater similarity between Yevon and archaic religion, as the prohibitions of archaic religion are likewise incapable of banishing the threat of mimetic crisis and require supplementation through the mechanism of ritual. The imperative of ritual, according to Girard, is to reproduce the miraculous event that put an end to the crisis, to immolate new victims, substituted for the original victim, in circumstances as close as possible to the original experience. The primary instance of ritual in Final Fantasy X is, of course, the pilgrimage made by the High Summoner. And this is where the game shifts from merely emulating archaic religion to providing a meaningful revelation of its nature. For Girard, religious thought tends to exclude major elements of the object of its interpretation. It retains only one of the contrary aspects of the whole constituted by the transferences, and concentrates on a single facet of an extremely complex phenomenon. By revealing the role of the High Summoner from three different perspectives, the surface-level interpretation, the official narrative, and the forbidden truth, FF10 is able to reveal multiple aspects of archaic religion, accentuating the malevolent aspect of sacrifice, the concentration of the evil sacred in the victim, and, on the other hand, the beneficent aspect, the reconciliation of the community, at different times and in different ways. When first introduced, the pilgrimage of the High Summoner has such positive associations that the violence of the sacred remains entirely obscured. While the people of Spira certainly unify around the figure of the Summoner, their admiration and gratitude feels natural. The Summoner is a hero who risks her life in defense of others. She fills an almost royal role in society. After the official narrative is revealed, however, the association between the Summoner and royalty offers an excellent reflection of the evolution from sacrificial ritual to monarchy posited by Girard. When a significant amount of time elapses between the selection of a victim and the victim's sacrifice, Girard explains, the victim can take advantage of the lapse of time to transform veneration into real power. In the case of the monarch, this results in his sacrifice becoming a progressively marginal aspect of the institution and eventually disappearing altogether. Such a description certainly seems apt for the role of summoner as Titus originally understood it, what with the lordly titles, special privileges, and veneration of the populace that being a summoner clearly conferred on Lady Yuna and Lord Braska. The ultimate fate of the High Summoner, then, transforms him into something of a missing link. While he possesses the high social status afforded by the lapse in time, he must still consummate the sacrifice through which this status arose. While the official narrative admits that the High Summoner's death lies at the heart of Yevon's core ritual, however, the beneficent aspects of that sacrifice retain exclusive focus. The High Summoner's self-sacrifice still fits far more neatly alongside the martyr and the soldier's last full measure of devotion than the gruesome slaughter of innocents associated with archaic rituals of human sacrifice. The surface-level interpretation and the official narrative, however, do not encompass the whole truth of Yevon's ritual sacrifice. In revealing Yevon's hidden truth, Final Fantasy X unveils the malevolent aspect of the sacrifice and exposes the mendacious spiral of death for what it is. As such, this revelation goes beyond simply reflecting archaic religion. Rather, it begins to reveal some of its uncomfortable truths. Spira is a world ruled by death. Resisting the bringer of death demands further death, and guarantees sin will be reborn to bring yet more death. As Girard explained, violence in archaic religion is a temporary remedy. The sickness is not really cured, and always recurs in the end. In fact, it's a poison used to counteract poison, a remedy to evil whose source is the evil itself. Furthermore, the ritual by which Yunalesca creates the final Aeon is in some ways deeper and darker than FF10's optimistic humanism can openly admit. That the ritual fails to present a long-term solution is sufficient reason to reject it, so its greater perversity can be safely suppressed. Like Girard's proposed precursor to the Sacred Monarch, however, the summoner is required, before ascending to the role of victim, to commit all the crimes that the first victim was supposed to have committed, to become complicit in Yunalesca's violation of the bonds of natural affection. It's not enough for the summoner to sacrifice a guardian, after all. The creation of the final Aeon demands that she, like Yunalesca, condemn the person closest to herself, a parent, a sibling, lover, best friend, to a fate worse than death. Furthermore, as Girard suggests, it is exactly this transgression that renders the victim capable of both disrupting the entire community and reunifying it through their death. The creation of the final Aeon both provides the seed for sin, Final Fantasy X's avatar of crisis, and polarizes that crisis against a single individual so it can be cast out by that individual's death. The fates of the High Summoner and the Guardian, meanwhile, reflect the paradoxical deification and demonization of the victim. The Summoner joins Yevon's pantheon of divine martyrs, while the Guardian becomes sin. In the end, Yevon accomplishes nothing by its prohibitions and rituals apart from eternal, unchanging continuity, a cycle of death spiraling endlessly around the foundation of sin. This is not an effective criticism of Christianity. In fact, if Girard is correct about Christianity's relationship with the violent sacred, Final Fantasy X offers a very similar critique of ancient religion to the one offered by Christianity itself. FF10's relationship to the work of Rene Girard extends beyond its effective illustration of his thoughts on prohibition and ritual, however. The roles of the founding myth, the abscess of fixation, and mimetic desire are also worth exploring. Next time on Ikkin Investigates.